explosive activities for 1 day per week is not going to build your business. Whether you're a full-time business owner, a solopreneur with no team, building a small team, maybe you've got a full-time 9 to 5 right now and you're building a hustle or a business on the side, and you're asking yourself, how is it going to be possible for me to build this business, for me to serve and help the people that I want to serve, especially while having to be financially competent with my job, paying the bills, doing all those little things? Well, it's not about a lot of activity once a week or once a month or several times a month. It's about the daily, consistent disciplines. And you've heard it before, the daily, consistent habits. You know all about it. You might have read books about it. You hear us talk on the podcast about it. But today we're going to be specifically diving into the habits and disciplines that you can incorporate into your daily routine to get real, tangible results in your business. We'll dive into your habits, your disciplines. We'll talk about how to change them. We'll talk about the most powerful ones. And we're not going to do it with just myself. We're going to do it with our very special guest today, Mr. Michal Stawicki, who's going to be shedding his wisdom and advice for us today. So you know the fee for the show. When you take away any piece of value or a philosophy or an insight, maybe we made you laugh, maybe we made you smile. All that we ask is you share this show with just one other person who could use it as well. You're the reason the show has grown the way it has. We don't run ads. We don't run sponsors, because you are the best part of the Be Better team over these past 2 years. And I'm grateful to you for sharing the show. So without further ado, let's talk about daily disciplines. Let's talk about habits. Let's talk about business growth with Mr. Michal Stawicki. And for those who don't know Michal is nicknamed Mr. Consistency. He is a best-selling author in the personal development field and a business coach. He is obsessed with changing the world through daily habits, and he preaches and practices this with his own consistent daily action. He believes that daily disciplines are the means to achieve success in any area of life, from business, parenting, every single area. So without further ado, Michal, it's great to have you on the show, my friend. Thanks for joining us all the way from the east side of the world. How are you?
I'm just fine. Thank you. Thanks for having me, Brandon.
Absolutely. We started talking a few months ago, and you said, Brandon, I think I'd be a great guest for the show. I love talking about disciplines. I love talking about habits. How did you get into this world of daily discipline and habits and business growth? I know specifically you love to help business owners go from the 5-figure mark, right, where they're starting, they're figuring things out, to the 6-figure mark per year in their business, which is a big jump. So I'm curious, how did you find yourself in this world, and why habits?
Well, the journey was long. It's been a decade, and so started in 2012. I read the book The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. Back then, I was a miserable corporate cog. Like, I was in my IT job. It was okay, but I just didn't feel I'm fulfilling my potential there. And it was across the board, not just the career, but also family life, relationships, health, and so on. And then I read this book, and the message of the book is success is a few simple disciplines repeated over time. And I was taken aback. How it cannot be so simple. Like, I thought success is like, starting a Microsoft or golden medal at Olympics. That's success. But a few simple disciplines. And because I thought that way, I never really gave myself permission to try to succeed. So with this new philosophy, I was like, well, it won't cost me much to try. Maybe it's really worthwhile. It took me a month really to grapple with the spot. And then I sat down and, like Jeff advised, set a few goals in different areas of my life, and then a few disciplines inching me towards those goals. And after a month, I was hooked because I had one initial quick success, which was practicing speed reading, and I doubled my reading speed in a month. And I was like, whoa, it's working. Let's try it with other areas which aren't so tangible maybe, or I have close to zero belief that I can do anything. I remember my reflections back then, I knew I need to start a business, but I had no clue how. Like, I was lifelong employee. I had zero, role models. I had no clue how to start a business. I had no idea, but I knew I want to have a business. Well, I need to, because working for a boss won't give me the lifestyle I want for my family.
Mm.
And I had zero belief, as I said. But, well, I could figure out some goals and some daily disciplines. And I would say this is the first takeaway for our listeners, because it always works. You always know the solutions at your place. Like, I didn't know how to start a new Microsoft. What I knew, okay, I was a database administrator.
Mm-hmm.
So if I wanted to make more money, I needed to be a better database administrator. Thus, I started studying professional documentation for 10 minutes a day.
Yeah.
And after less than 2 years, I passed few exams, got few certificates, and got a small salary raise. Then changed jobs and got 30% salary raise with that change. So, like, I had no clue, but I just sat for 10 minutes, thought of, okay, what I can do in my career area, and I knew the answers. And
Yeah.
then next to that, I was pursuing new paths. I started writing books and publishing them on Amazon, uh, and figuring out how to make money on that. But like, that was a learning curve. That was something totally new. But when I started, I knew, okay, if I want to make more money, the only way I know to make money is to sell my services as database administrator. So if I want to be worth more, I need to provide more value, and that was my answer. Okay, a long story.
Yeah, 100%. We're going to dive into it too. I want to know first, you said that book name at the very beginning very quickly. What's the name of that book that you read at the very beginning?
The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson.
Oh, The Slight Edge. Okay, I've heard of that book, but I haven't read it myself. A few guests have mentioned that on the show. I like to ask too, because it's very interesting that you were in the corporate world yourself, like a lot of people who are listening. You had this desire and knowingness that you wanted to start a business, but you asked yourself, okay, I'm not quite sure how to go about this. I'm not sure if I can build the next Microsoft or where to even begin. So I want to talk about that too, as well as the first disciplines that you started incorporating. But you said a few things there I want to dive into. The first thing is, was there a specific catalyst in your life or something that happened that sparked this entire series of events for you to then buy the book and then put in the effort towards incorporating those disciplines for a month? Like, what was the moment that you said to yourself, I have to start building this business and taking the step in this direction? Because a lot of people think about it for a long time, but it's a different thing to take action on it than just think about it.
Yeah, so I would say, I know if it's uncommon, but for sure it's uncommon to hear about this. Because I had no dramatic situation, I had no traumatic event. I just was, like Torao said, living in a quiet desperation, and I didn't like it. And I had no solution to that. And the message of the Slight Edge was the solution for me. That was one thing. The other is, I clearly remember this moment of pushing over the fence. One of my top Gallup talents is context. So I look at the past and can extrapolate the future, and, like, I can see it. For me, it's natural. So I looked over my financial data and extrapolated them with different variations, different paths, 40 years till the retirement age. And I was like, heck, nope. Nope. Like, this doesn't work. I need to change something,
Yeah.
period. Because even the best case scenario wasn't that bright at all. And I already felt come on, miserable, as I said, miserable. And thinking of next 30 years like that, and then having this small of reward, no, that wasn't for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it reminds me of that quote that I'm sure you've heard, but I've mentioned it many times on this show, where we only change once the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of changing, because it takes a lot of effort, especially when you're working a full-time job. You've got a family to take care of, to put in those consistent actions towards a quote unquote side hustle or a business that you're growing. So you started in 2012 in building this business, and we're talking now 10 years later. So it's been an entire decade of discipline and habits and work. And now you're helping other business coaches. What did the journey look like from that beginning point to where you are now? Are you still in the IT space? Are you still working in the corporate world? Are you full-time business owner? What does your life look like today after a decade?
Nowadays, I have a business. It's a book advertising agency. We run ads for other authors on Amazon. I'm coaching, and I have small income from my book royalties. And actually, I quit my job when we were in contact. I was still working quarter time for PwC. I quit my job, and since September this year, I'm my own man.
Wow, last month, huh?
Yes, sir.
Congratulations. That's amazing.
That's great. That feels great. Like I was for the last 4 years, I was working only quarter time, but
Yeah.
still my mind couldn't be full into my business and my things because of that. And it feels like I was a decent employee as long as I had zero of my own vision. But then, comparing my thing to the corporate gig, like it has zero pulling quite really for me. I needed to be pushed to do anything.
Yeah, I think it's important though too to point out the fact that you still had this other source of income that was your job for nearly 10 years after starting your business. A lot of people start something new and they immediately think, I can't work my job and build this at the same time. Like, what will people think of me if they know that I have a job while I'm building a business? And I was at a networking event the other day, and I'm still in sales too. I work with sales teams, but I still work with one company specifically on a regular schedule for the full-time income that comes from that, because I've been doing that for 10 years and it's great income. Why would I just throw that away? And I was at a networking event, and one individual at the event said, "Oh, so you're not doing this full-time," talking about my business. And it's like, no, I very much am doing this full time, but I'm also working with this company because it provides a stable source of income. The business doesn't quite yet provide that. It's up, it's down. It just depends on where I am. And she was like, "Oh, I thought you were full-time business." And she said it in like a strange way. And she's a very kind lady. I've met her several times before this. If you're watching this, then know that I still have deep love and respect for you. But it was the way that she said it, which was very interesting. It was said in this air of, well, if you're operating a business, you're not successful in this business until you're full-time. But you just demonstrated after a decade, you've built up these additional revenue streams. You had the job still. You slowly stepped back from the job. At the end, you were quarter time, right? So you slowly stepped back. But while you were slowly stepping away from the job, you wrote your books. Now you're earning royalties. You had the advertising firm, which helps other authors. And then you started saying, okay, I want to help other business owners make these same moves in their business. And now you're coaching other business owners. So there might be more, but there's 3 income streams that you were building while working a job. So my whole point is, guys, don't be ashamed if you're working at a company or you're working at a job, right? If you're talking to people and they put you down for that, or they say it in a strange, slight of way manner, then you probably don't want to be spending time around those people anyway. So I think it's inspiring how you just left the corporate world after 10 years of doing this. So congratulations again. And thanks for sharing that story with us.
You're welcome. And I would add, like, I regret not jotting down where I heard that. It was on some podcast, on entrepreneurship podcast, and the podcast was exactly about transitioning from day job to your own thing. And he quoted that 80% of people who start their own business, they slowly, gradually transition into their business, and the rest, the 20%, are all those shiny stories. I quit my day job and in a year I made millions. So everyone thinks that, okay, you need to quit your job and make million in the next year, but the reality is that majority of people do it slowly and gradually.
That is so true. Use your day job to your advantage. Take away the skills that you're improving in while you're there and put those into your business. If you have a day job that is not congruent with what it is you're doing with your business, that's more difficult. But I'm in sales and I work with sales teams. They completely go together hand in hand. If you can find something that's complementary for you, for sure, do it. Now, I'm curious to know, you mentioned, okay, you had this idea in your mind when you started in business of you weren't quite sure where to begin. You discovered these daily disciplines. You started to speed read. You started to improve there. You started to determine, I think this was very important about what you said. You determined, and this is different words, but what you said was you determined the skills that you needed to improve in and learn and grow in. And you placed habits and disciplines behind those very specific skills that you wanted to grow in. So my question is kind of twofold. What were those skills that you needed to learn when you were starting in business? And what were the daily disciplines that you incorporated at the beginning that were most powerful for you at that point?
No, at the very beginning, I had no clue. So I really trusted Jim Rohn in his saying that income seldom exceeds personal development. So I just tripled down on my personal development. I listened to podcasts, to audio programs, read a lot of books, and I just studied everything I could. And what skills I needed? Come on, I needed everything. Like I had zero social presence 10 years ago. I didn't even had a Facebook account, not mentioning any other. And like I needed to learn marketing, social media, run my own website, email marketing, everything, from scratch, and then to like incorporate into. And I had different ideas, and so first I wanted to be a writer, and well, I am a writer right now. But I tried different things like writing fiction in Poland, which didn't really pan out. Started a couple of blogs which failed, and then finally nailed it with personal development books. Very short books. Like my first one is 50 pages maybe, but it serves its purpose, creating personal mission statement. So it is still selling now after 9 years and something. So this is how I learn how to got some belief into myself, because I was writing and people were willing to spend the hard-earned money on the things I wrote. So, wow, that was a big aha for me. So that was like the first step, the first income. Then I started coaching habits on a platform called coach.me. I used it first as my habit tracker, and then they transitioned it into coaching. So I got certified by them, and I coached over 100 people out there.
Wow.
And it created some income stream, and I still earning like a couple $100 from that platform with a few clients of mine. Then the book advertising came into play. Like I started to double with it because my book sales were not there, and I discovered it was like childishly easy for me to increase my sales, and I started then to offer it to my self-published authors friends. I was so excited. I remember because I also had a great success with the first customer, but in the end it appeared okay. That was a fluke. That was good book which Amazon liked. Still, I was committed to like several other people before I discovered that, so I kept doing this, and I started to get some business training.
Mm-hmm.
with my business on purpose platform. So I started to delegate out things, document things, and this business was always like a quarter time for me for the whole time, and still is. Like now I'm writing, I have this business, and I'm coaching.
Yeah.
So it's not half time. No, it's not even half time. And
What are the, but in regards to that, in regards to the time you're putting into your business, what are those daily disciplines that you consider to be non-negotiables for you in your current business dealings? What are the things that you do each day that makes your business success possible at this point?
supervising my team, answering to, like, I'm the sales department right now, so I'm replying to prospects. Then after they transition from prospects to customers, my customer service person is taking them over. Still, it needs some supervision and my involvement, and also like sometimes communication with customers. This customer service person is new one, so she's not fully familiar with the whole business, and I am, because I created it from ground up. So those are the things, like, yeah, replying to inquiries and making sure that operations are running smoothly, not by doing them. From time to time I have few tasks which I'm still doing, but mostly just delegating out and making sure it's happening.
Yeah.
um, yeah, and that's it. And because I'm very part-time business owner, uh, and I created it that way because, I had a full-time job when I started.
Yeah.
So it was like natural for me to do it that way, that I'm not doing much, but I'm delegating out a lot.
And that's powerful. And I think that a lot of people listening aren't quite at the stage where they can delegate a lot of things out, or they're not quite sure how to delegate it out. They don't have a team yet. And I'll ask you this quick. If you're part-time business right now, then what does the rest of your life look like? Did you design your life in a way where your business is sustaining you so that you can enjoy your time with family? Like what does your life look like now aside from your business?
So I always say that business is less than half of my life, because I'm involved in my church. My family situation is tricky, and my marriage demands a lot of work and my mental energy. And I have 3 kids. So the business was always less than half of my mental space, mental energy, and it stayed that way. Uh, and I lost the track of what you were asking me.
Well, that was the beginning because you intentionally designed your life around your family, around your church, around the community. You tried a lot of things in the last decade in order to find out what works. I don't want to discount what you said when you said, well, I started to write books. I started with fiction and then I landed on nonfiction and personal development and I saw success with that. And then you said book sales weren't quite there. So I dove into advertising. And then you said, well, then I discovered I liked coaching. So you started to do that. You tried all these different things to land on what it is you enjoy doing that actually got you results. But it's important to notice and point out there that you failed many times, right? And failed is a very interesting word because some people see it as the end all be all. But to me, failing is you learned what's working and what's not working, and you stopped doing what's not working to incorporate what is, and you started to build a team around these systems that you created. So we're fast forwarding a lot here, but I want to know specifically for you at the beginning, before the team, before the delegation, while working full time with the 3 kids, with the church service, what were the daily disciplines that made your business possible before you had a team? What
Yeah.
what does that look like for you? What did that look like?
So I can tell you how it looked like for me, but I will also start from how it should like for you, whoever is listening to this, because, like Jim said, there are just a few simple disciplines regarding every business. So I started with writing, and within several months, I had a couple of a few of disciplines. First was writing. Like writing must happen to be a writer. Yeah, this is
Yeah.
this verb which describes the activity. Uh, then, when you write, then you need to edit. Then, if you want to publish, you need to prepare this piece, to format it, add images, and so on, and do maybe some marketing, which I'm terrible at, but still learn something. Yeah, so writing and editing, there were like two non-negotiable activities, because this was the core of my business. If I and the important thing in your business is, like with writing, nothing will happen if I didn't write for one day
Mm-hmm.
or 1 week or even 1 month. Like the world wouldn't end. I would still have my day job, income, maybe royalties from a few books which I already published. But this is the fabric of my business. So I needed to do this. And also my virtual mentor, Craig Ballantyne, he says that if you're a solopreneur, sales should be your one thing,
Mm.
which, yeah, I was always reluctant to do, really.
Why were you reluctant when it came to sales?
Like first I didn't know how to do it, then it wasn't really my thing, so I would rather write than sell or market. And it's still up till date. Like my business right now is created that in a way that people come to me. I don't need to chase my customers. I have all the customers from referrals, recommendations, and one online marketplace where there is, like, this space is not that competitive. There are just, maybe dozen people in the world who are doing this.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm shining on this marketplace. It's ritzy.com, and I'm getting inquiries every day from there. So I don't need to chase clients, and this is how I build this business.
Yeah.
But now, when I'm trying to grow my coaching practice, it bites me back in my butt, because I need to learn how to do that. And
Yes.
it's, yeah. So sales are important, and I also know from my coaching practice, because I have a couple of success stories of my coaches. Like, this was really what they neglected: prospecting and having a full pipeline. And once they started doing this consistently, like, the business exploded. And yeah, this is very important. So I would say, you always know what's the fabric of your business. Like, for me, it was writing at the beginning, and
Mm-hmm.
sales needs to happen. So at the very beginning, Amazon was so easy. In 2013, you just published the book, then promoted it in the first month, and it was sticky enough to sell for the next year. And if you publish a few more books during that time, of course, that old book got elevated as well. So I could, get over, like, it didn't hurt me to be uh, not very mindful of my marketing.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, I
and
like that
then
story
when
because
it failed, I got into ads. And then again, I haven't to do much work on a daily basis. I just needed to have those ads which were working on daily basis.
working for you because you didn't want to put the world's most amount of hours into it. You worked smarter rather than harder, and you found the hubs that would do the work for you. It's interesting hearing you talk about sales because you it took a decade to get to the point where you are, and it might have happened sooner if you did focus more on the outreach portion when it comes to sales. But you instead built systems of what the industry calls attraction marketing, right? You wrote the books, you created the website, you created the content, you put yourself on certain marketplaces, you ran ads, you made it so that people came to you for business, which is great. And it worked out for you. And I think it can work for most people. When it comes to those who are starting a business and the business needs to get to a certain level of income and you've got big goals in a short amount of time, then it's very likely that outbound and outreach to your ideal client, to, not chasing clients, but starting conversations with clients, is going to be really important. But it's cool hearing a story from someone who has found success through the attraction marketing, which, by the way, you're doing it right now. Podcasts is a great way to attract clients without directly messaging people who don't know you, right? So it's a really great way to sell. Okay, great. So I'm curious, you've talked about before, because you incorporated this habit of writing into your life, and you said it's we all know the fabric of our business, but I think that that's an assumption that everyone does know the fabric of the business, because a lot of people, especially the people you work with, online entrepreneurs, they aren't very clear on how it is they help people, right? Especially, you, I guarantee, correct me if I'm wrong, you work with a lot of coaches and life coaches and people who want to help other people improve their life. Is that correct? Do you help people like that?
That would be a customer who would fit my avatar, but no,
Yeah.
I haven't worked with a strict coach yet.
Okay, got it. Well, what you'll find, because I have, is you'll find that they want to help people, but they're not quite sure what's unique about them. They're not quite sure where they should begin. So they aren't sure of the fabric of their business. You knew yours was writing, but for those who aren't quite sure where they should place their focus, which is a non-negotiable in your daily routine, ask yourself, if I only focused on one thing in my business, what will get me the greatest results? For me, several years ago, it was to start a podcast, because I loved to talk to people. I love to have really great conversations that are long form conversations. I love to help people. And I knew at the same time it would build my own brand and it would help me network with other great people like yourself, Michael. So I chose the podcast and I poured my time into it. And that has branched off to different things. But the question is, what is the fabric of your business, guys? And how can you focus on that and create routines around that, where even if you only focused on this, it'll get you great results? Now, you've spoken on your blog, Michael, because I researched you obviously before this conversation, how you mentioned it's hard to do the necessary tasks that are required in order to achieve success. When you sat down to write, it would have been equally as simple to pick up your phone and go on Facebook. When you sat down to work on the branding of your business, it was probably equally as easy to go spend time with your kids or go to the church event or whatever it is. How did you fight the resistance of procrastination when incorporating these daily routines?
Okay, if you want to win, you don't fight the resistance. You start so small that there is no resistance. And yeah, that's the best road that works for most, because there are some folks who just cannot start small because it's too small for them and they will discount it and quit because it's small. But for most people, majority, you need to start small, because if you start small,